In this video, I'm going to show you the first step that every international doctor must go through if they are wanting to work in Australia. Hello, I'm Dr. Anthony Llewellyn. I'm basically a doctor from Australia who is a bit of a medical HR nerd, and I'm here to help you with your medical career. Now, before I hop into the good old internet to show you this first step, let me let you know that in the description to this video there is a guidebook that you can download that gives you an overview of the 4 registration pathways for international doctors in Australia. Now, onto the internet. Okay, here we are on the internet. We're on the Australian Medical Council website. And I'm just going to take you through the steps that you need to do to get verified to work in Australia. So this is a step that every IMG, whether you're going through the standard pathway, the competent authority pathway, specialist pathway, or the short-term pathway, must do as part of the process. And it's the first step. Now, I've actually, confession here, been through this a couple of times in practicing, and it's not as straightforward as it seems, so I can see the pain that people go through, but it is doable. I know lots of people have gone through it, so let's just get into it and I'll show you how you do it, because this is your first step. So you can do this at any point in time in the process. Basically, once you've got your medical degree in another country. In my experience, it takes people a few weeks. So the AMC is interesting because it actually is not the Medical Board of Australia. So people, that's the first point of confusion. So we've got the Australian Medical Council and we've got the Medical Board of Australia. The Medical Board of Australia is to do with registration and monitoring of professionals, and the Australian Medical Council is about the standards of education and training and assessment of medical professions. So it does a bunch of things. It accredits all the medical schools in Australia and New Zealand, interestingly, and it accredits all the colleges in Australia, including those colleges that are both Australia and New Zealand. There are a couple other colleges in New Zealand, just primarily New Zealand based. I don't know. I think maybe the AMC looks after them as well, but I'll have to check that. So there's a bunch of things, and the other thing it does is verify international medical graduates. So find the info about that section. You go to verifications and examinations. Now, I mean, this is, in comparison to the medical board side, I think this is a better site for IMGs, but you'd think maybe this might be better named international medical graduates or coming from overseas or something like that. But anyway, this is where you go, and you can see a bunch of things here. Firstly, they take you through what I've just talked about, which is the pathways. Each page has this COVID stuff now, so we've got to skip through it. There's their role, the fact that you need primary source verification, the various registration pathways. For some reason, short term is not here, but you definitely do need to get your degree verified as well if you're coming through the short term pathway. But this is not the best page for explaining things. It's this one here, the AMC portfolio page. But before we do that, one thing you want to do before you try and go through the AMC verification process is make sure that your medical school is recognised by the AMC. Now, largely, any school that's on what's called the World Directory of Medical Schools will be on the list with the AMC, but sometimes you might find your schools missing, and they do note here that the list is continually reviewed and updated. You can contact them to see if your school's not on the list, if it ought to be, but most people's schools are on the list. So what do? Let's say I'm from the University of Toronto in Canada. So I click on the country, find Canada here, and then we look at the list, and there at the bottom, University of Toronto. Okay, so I'm good to go. That's something you should do first. And then I think the best way of explaining the rest of the steps is this page that says AMC portfolio. So this, again, skipping through the COVID stuff, we've got a 6-step process here. So first one, step 1, IMG is required to submit their primary qualification and ensure it was completed and awarded by a training institution recognised by the AMC. So this is about doing your little self-check, basically. So that doesn't cost you anything, just your time to go and do that on the website. Then this is where it gets a little bit confusing, because this is where you get sent somewhere else. So then you have to create an EPIC account. So what is an EPIC account? Well, let's click on this. EPIC is the Electronic Portfolio of International Credentials. It's run by the ECFMG, which is the Educational Commission for Foreign Medical Graduates. And these guys are based in the United States, and they verify primary medical degrees as well as actually postgraduate medical degrees internationally. So the AMC has like a linking with the EPOC. So using EPIC, you have to register with them. You have to upload some credentials and some identification, verification, etc. And you can see what the fees are for that. So to establish your Epic account is $125 US. So here's where the money starts being handed over. That's kind of relatively cheap compared to most other parts of the process. And then to verify a credential is $90 US. Now, when we get back to the process with the AMC, we'll see that they do say to make sure you let Epic to let AMC know. Some people have got caught in the past and haven't done that bit, and then had to pay more money for a credential. But I understand now it's free if you've already had it verified. You can just go back and tell them to tell someone else that you are who you say you are and you did whatever medical degree you did. So that's the EPIC. So you go over to the EPIC and create an account, and that involves confirming your identity as well. So once you've done that, you get emailed within a few working days your Epic ID, which then allows you to establish an AMC portfolio. Now you can actually start that process. You can kind of get your login, etc. But the AMC says you require an Epic ID to complete the portfolio application. And this is the bit that lets you go forward with the various other parts of the pathway, including the standard pathway. So you kind of go bouncing between both organisations. So you've got your AMC portfolio now because you've got your Epic ID. Then you go back to Epic and you upload your qualifications, and it says as you upload each qualification, request that Epic's report be sent to the AMC. When your credential is sent for verification, the AMC will be notified to update the verification status on the AMC qualifications portal. And if you're going through the standard or competent authority pathways, you must have your final medical diploma. And for specialists, you need your final medical diploma and your postgraduate qualifications. And then if you've got any doubts about what qualifications if you're on the specialist pathway, you might need verified, you can check with that college. But I basically suggest getting anything that's a postgraduate qualification verified, basically. So if you've got two, get both of them verified. And then you proceed with the pathway. I'm not sure exactly what it is in terms of the AMC portfolio, because basically all you're doing is waiting. I mean, you start applying for jobs if you're on the competent authority pathway. The standard pathway, you at least need the AMC Part 1, so I guess you're practicing there, and with the specialist pathway, you're normally waiting to be assessed by the college. So not sure that's necessarily the case. You can proceed at that point, but anyway, for those people I talk to, it's usually a few weeks to get this step done. Your qualification will be verified, and if you did the right thing and requested Epic talk to AMC, then that will be uploaded on the AMC portal. And then at this point, you have to pay the fee to establish an AMC portfolio and add qualifications to your portfolio. So the colleges and the medical board in Australia, it says that here somewhere, but basically they don't go to Epic, they go to the AMC. They trust the AMC. So the AMC handles the job with EPIC, and then once things are in the AMC portfolio, colleges and the medical board can check with the AMC basically. And so that's pretty much it if you're on the competent authority pathway or the specialist pathway or the short-term specialist pathway in terms of the AMC. Once you've got it verified, you can then go and do the next bit, which competent authority would be trying to obtain a position somewhere. Specialist pathway normally then applying to the college. And if you're on the standard pathway, this is once you've got your AMC portfolio and everything's completed, you're then able to go on to the AMC website and see the section about when the next multiple choice exam is and register for one of the upcoming multiple choice exams. So you need to have done all this bit for the standard pathway before you can then sit the first AMC exam. We can see what the fees and charges for all this are here. So to establish an AMC portfolio, $500, compare that to $125.90 US. Add additional qualifications, $40 each. And they've even got a refund structure. Okay. And then we've got the fees for the exams. So that's it in a nutshell. That's how we go about the first step that everybody has to go through if they're an international doctor who wants to work in Australia. Essentially, it's about verifying your primary medical degree, and in case of specialist, also your secondary medical degree or your postgraduate medical degree through the AMC. Okay, there you have it. That's the first step that you have to complete in order to work in Australia. Yes, there's a bit of toing and froing, and it can be a little bit painful at times, but it is doable. Lots of doctors before you have gone through this process. And you can consider it a little bit of a warm-up for some of the later processes, which can seem even more painful. So don't forget to grab your copy of the free guide about registration pathways in Australia. I will see you in the next video.